हेलो गाइस, वेलकम बैक टू लॉस्टॉर्मिंग प्लेटफॉर्म। मैं हूँ शालिनी और आज के इस वीडियो में हम डील करेंगे विद येट अनदर इम्पॉर्टेंट टॉपिक ऑफ स्पेसिफिक कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, दैट इज़ बेलमेंट। और अगर अभी तक आपने चैनल को सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया देन प्लीज़ सब्सक्राइब। लेट्स स्टार्ट विद द वीडियो। सो सेक्शन 148 डिफाइंस बेलमेंट, बेलर एंड बेली। सो बेलमेंट क्या होता है? अ बेलमेंट इज द डिलीवरी ऑफ द गुड्स बाय वन पर्सन टू अनदर फॉर सम पर्पस upon a contract that they shall, when the purpose is accomplished, be returned or otherwise disposed of according to the directions of the person delivering them. So, bailment में सबसे पहले दो लोग होते हैं, दो parties. One party delivers the good to the other upon a contract, और वो contract भी is for a specific purpose. कि जब वो purpose accomplish हो जाएगा, then you either need to return the goods to the bailer, that is the person who has delivered the goods, or you need to dispose of the goods according to the direction of the person जिसने delivery की है. There are two parties in the contract of bailment. First is the bailer. So the person who is delivering the good is called the bailer, and second is Bailee. तो जिसको हम goods deliver करते हैं is called the Bailee. Now कभी कभी ऐसा हो सकता है कि जिसे हम goods bail करना चाहते हैं, goods already उस इंसान के possession में हो, and we are merely entering into a contract with that person and asking that person to hold the good as Bailee. उस सिनेरियो में दैट पर्सन बिकम्स द बेली जिसके पास गुड्स है, पोजेशन है गुड्स का, एंड द ओनर बिकम्स द बेलर ऑफ सच गुड, ऑल्दो दे मे नॉट हैव बीन डिलीवर्ड बाय वे ऑफ बेलमेंट. दिस इज व्हाट एक्सप्लेनेशन टू सेक्शन 148 says. Now, section 149 talks about delivery to Bailee, how made. So the delivery to the Bailee may be made by doing anything which has the effect of putting the goods in the possession of the intended Bailee or of any person authorized to hold them on his behalf. So, in case of delivery to Bailee, there need to be change in possession. The possession of the good has to be with the Bailee. Now, goods can be delivered in two manners. First is actual delivery. So, in case of actual delivery, there is change in physical possession. Bailer के पास से good Bailee के पास चला जाता है. Second is constructive delivery. So in case of constructive delivery, there is no change of physical possession. Goods जहाँ हैं वहीं रहते हैं, but something is done which has the effect of putting them in the possession of the Bailee. Now let's take an example. Let's say A is the Bailer and he gives the key of the warehouse to B. So यहाँ पे warehouse तो जहाँ है वहीं है, but you give the key of the warehouse to B who is the Bailee. So अब the possession of warehouse is with the Bailee. So this is an example of constructive delivery. And in case of bailment, it is important that there is delivery of possession. क्योंकि जब तक delivery नहीं होगी possession की, there is no bailment. Alright? इसके बाद section 150 says bailer's duty to disclose faults in goods bailed. So the bailer is bound to disclose to the bailee faults in the goods bailed of which the bailer is aware and which materially interferes with the use of them or expose the bailee to extraordinary risk. And if he does not make such disclosure, he is responsible for damage arising to the bailee directly from such fault. If the goods are bailed for hire, the bailer is responsible for such damage whether he was or was not aware of the existence of such fault in the goods bailed. Now, section 150 में दो बातें कही गई हैं. First paragraph of section 150 talks about gratuitous bailment. So gratuitous bailment के केस में अगर बेलर को पता है कि गुड्स में कोई फॉल्ट है एंड उसने फिर भी बेली को नहीं बताया एंड दैट मटेरियली इंटरफेयर्स विद द यूज ऑफ द गुड्स और एक्सपोजेस द बेली टू एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी रिस्क, देन बेलर विल बी लायबल. सो ग्रेट्यूटस बेलमेंट के केस में बेलर विल बी लायबल ओनली इफ ही नोज ऑफ द फॉल्ट इन द गुड्स. सेकेंड पैराग्राफ टॉक्स अबाउट हायर परचेज. सो इफ द गुड्स आर बेल्ड फॉर हायर, उस केस में बेलर रिस्पॉन्सिबल होगा फॉर डैमेज इफ सम डैमेज अकर्स टू द बेली, irrespective of the fact कि उसको पता है कि गुड्स में कोई फॉल्ट है या नहीं पता है. सो यहाँ पे नॉलेज ऑफ फॉल्ट इज irrelevant. ठीक. Now let's take an example. A lends a horse which he knows to be vicious to B. He does not disclose the fact that the horse is vicious. The horse runs away. B is thrown and injured. So इस scenario में because A had knowledge that the horse is vicious, A will be responsible to B for damage sustained. Let's take another example. A hires a carriage of B. The carriage is unsafe, though B is not aware of it. and A is injured. Now this is an example of hire purchase, so इसीलिए it's irrelevant whether B knows of it or he does not have any knowledge of the fault in the carriage, and therefore B will anyway be liable for the injury caused to A. After this, section 151 talks about care to be taken by Bailee. It says, in all cases of bailment, the bailee is bound to take as much care of the goods bailed to him as a man of ordinary prudence would under similar circumstances take of his own goods of the same bulk, quality and value as the goods bailed. इसके बाद section 152 talks about bailee when not liable for loss of things bailed. So the bailee, in the absence of any special contract, is not responsible for the loss, destruction or deterioration of the things bailed if he has taken the amount of care of it described in section 151. So, if the bailee has taken due care of the good as a man of ordinary prudence would take of his own good, then उस scenario में अगर कोई loss या destruction होता भी है goods को, then the bailee is not responsible for the loss. After this, section 153 says, termination of bailment by bailee's act inconsistent with condition. So, a contract of bailment is avoidable at the option of the bailor if the bailee does any act with regard to the goods bailed inconsistent with the condition of bailment. So, if the bailee has taken due care, he is not responsible. But if he has acted inconsistently with the goods, उस case में the bailor can terminate the bailment. Now, section 154 talks about liability of bailee making unauthorized use of goods bailed. So, if the bailee makes any use of the goods bailed which is not according to the condition of bailment, he is liable to make compensation to the bailor for any damage arising to the goods from or during such use of them. Now let's look at the illustration. The illustration says, A hires a horse in Calcutta from B expressly to march to Banaras. A rides with due care but marches to Cuttack instead. So the horse accidentally falls and is injured, and in this case A is liable to make compensation to B for the injury to the horse because the horse was hired for the purpose of marching it to Banaras, but it was marched to Cuttack, and therefore it was unauthorized use of the goods bailed, and therefore the bailee will be responsible to the bailor and compensate the bailor for the loss caused to the horse. इसके बाद section 155 to 157 talks about effect of mixture of goods. So इसमें section 155 says effect of mixture with bailor's consent of his goods with bailee. So अगर bailor consent कर रहा है that the bailee can mix his good with that of bailor's good, so उस case में bailor and bailee shall have an interest in proportion to their respective shares in the mixture thus produced. Okay. Then after this, section 156 talks about effect of mixture without bailor's consent when the goods can be separated. So in second scenario, the bailor has not consented for the mixture of the good, but the goods are of such a nature कि उनको separate किया जा सकता है. Then उस case में the property in the goods remain in the parties respectively, यानी कि जो bailor का property है that will be with bailor and of bailee will be that with bailee. But the bailee is bound to bear the expense of separation or division and any damage arising from the mixture. Alright, तो उसको compensate करना होगा अगर कुछ damage हुआ, and he will also bear the cost of separation of goods. Let's take an example. A bails 100 bales of cotton marked with a particular mark to B. B, without A's consent, mixes the 100 bales with other bales of his own bearing a different mark. So यहाँ पे दोनों में different marks हैं, so it can be separated. A is entitled to have his 100 bales returned, and B is bound to bear all the expenses incurred in separation of the bales and any other incidental damage. Alright. After this, section 157 says effect of mixture without bailor's consent when the goods cannot be separated. So यहाँ पे consent भी नहीं है bailor का, plus goods are of such a nature कि आप उसको separate नहीं कर सकते हो. So उस scenario में the bailor is entitled to be compensated by the bailee for the loss of the goods. Let's take an illustration. A bails a barrel of Cape flour worth rupees 45 to B. B, without A's consent, mixes the flour with the country flour of his own which is worth only rupees 25. So दोनों flour ही है but अलग अलग value का, and therefore quality में difference है. Now he mixes both the flowers and obviously it cannot be separated. So B must compensate A for the loss of his flower. Alright. So 155 talks जहाँ पे with consent mix किया गया है, 156 without consent but the goods can be separated, and 157 without consent and the goods cannot be separated. इसके बाद section 158 talks about repayment by bailor of necessary expenses. So where by the condition of bailment the goods are to be kept or to be carried or to have work done upon them by the bailee for the bailor, and bailee is not to receive any remuneration. So कुछ काम करना है and the goods are supposed to be kept with the bailee, but bailee को कोई remuneration नहीं मिलेगा. उस केस में the bailor shall repay the bailee the necessary expenses which will be incurred by the bailee for the purpose of bailment. इसके बाद section 159 talks about restoration of goods lent gratuitously. So the lender of a thing for use may at any time require its return if the loan was gratuitous, even though he lent it for a specified time or purpose. But if on the faith of such loan made for a specified time or purpose, the borrower has acted in such a manner that the return of the thing lent before the time agreed upon would cause him loss exceeding the benefit actually derived by him from the loan, the lender must, if he compels the return, indemnify the borrower for the amount in which the loss so occasioned exceeds the benefit so derived. So ये section बोल रहा है कि जहाँ पे gratuitous lending है वहाँ पे lender कभी भी demand कर सकता है goods को, and जो borrower है उसे वो goods return करना होगा. But अगर उसने वो goods किसी specified purpose या time के लिए लिया था और lender ने उसके पहले ही goods मांग लिया और जिसके वजह से borrower को कोई loss हुआ है, then the lender will indemnify the borrower उस loss के लिए. Okay? If obviously the loss exceeds the benefits so derived. After this, section 160 talks about return of goods bailed on expiration of time or accomplishment of purpose. So it is the duty of the bailee to return or deliver according to bailor's direction the goods bailed without demand as soon as the time for which they were bailed has expired or the purpose for which they were bailed has been accomplished. So एक बार जिस भी पर्पस के लिए गुड्स को बेल किया गया था वो पर्पस अकम्प्लिश हो गया, या फिर जिस एक स्पेसिफाइड टाइम के लिए अगर गुड बेल हुआ था और वो टाइम एक्सपायर हो गया, देन उस सिनेरियो में भी विदाउट डिमांड बेली की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है दैट ही विल डिलीवर द गुड्स बैक टू द बेलर. Then section 161 says Bailee's responsibility when goods are not duly returned. If by the default of the bailee the goods are not returned, delivered or tendered at the proper time, then the bailee is responsible to the bailor for any loss, destruction or deterioration of the goods from that time. After this, 162 talks about termination of gratuitous bailment by death. So a gratuitous bailment is terminated by death either of the bailor or the bailee. So bailment में either party का अगर death हो जाता है, then obviously the bailment will come to an end and it will terminate. After this, section 163 talks about bailor entitled to increase or profit from goods bailed. So in the absence of any contract to the contrary, the bailee is bound to deliver to the bailor or according to his directions any increase or profit which may have accrued from the goods bailed. So let's take an example. A leaves a cow in the custody of B to be taken care of. The cow has a calf. B is bound to deliver the calf as well as the cow to A. So bailor ने कोई good दिया बेली को. Now there's an increase or any profit which have accrued from that goods. So बेली की responsibility है कि वो goods तो लौटाएगा ही, plus उसके साथ जो भी profit या increment हुआ है goods में वो भी उसको deliver करना होगा बेलर को. So इस example में उसने cow दिया था and the cow gave birth to a calf. So now bailee will return not only the cow but also the calf to the bailor. After this, 164 says bailor's responsibility to bailee. So the bailor is responsible to the bailee for any loss which the bailee may sustain by reason that the bailor was not entitled to make the bailment or to receive back the goods or to give direction respecting them. So 164 talks about right of bailee कि अगर bailor के वजह से कोई नुकसान होता है bailee को, then bailor will compensate bailee for that loss. After this, section 165 talks about bailment by several joint owners. So if several joint owners of goods bail them, the Bailee may deliver them back to or according to the direction of one joint owner without the consent of all in the absence of any agreement to the contrary. So 5 लोगों ने मिल के बेलमेंट किया है, तो किसी एक को भी बेली रिटर्न कर सकता है या किसी एक के रिक्वेस्ट या ऑर्डर पे भी एक्ट कर सकता है और उसको रिटर्न कर सकता है गुड्स. Then 166 says Bailee not responsible on redelivery to Bailor without title. So if the Bailor has no title to the goods and the Bailee in good faith delivers them back to or according to the direction of the Bailor, the Bailee is not responsible to the owner in respect of such delivery. So इस केस में this Bailor and this Bailee, but Bailor does not have the title to that good and ये बात Bailee को नहीं पता है and Bailee after the purpose is accomplished या time expire हो गया of bailment returns the good back to the Bailor. So इस केस में Bailee now is not responsible to the third party who is actually claiming that he is the actual owner of the good. So he is not responsible to that third party. Now 167 says right of third person claiming goods bailed. So if a person other than the Bailor claims goods bailed, he may apply to the court to stop the delivery of goods to the Bailor and to decide the title to the goods. So यहाँ पे we are talking about the right of a third party. So if some third party is claiming to be the owner of the good bailed, तो उस केस में इससे पहले कि Bailee goods deliver करे Bailor को, जो कि हमने 166 में देखा, एक बार उसने डिलीवर कर दिया देन वो रिस्पॉन्सिबल नहीं है टू थर्ड पार्टी. बट इससे पहले कि Bailee गुड्स को डिलीवर करे Bailor को, the third party can apply to the court and it can stop the delivery of the goods to the Bailor and request the court to decide the title of the goods. After this, section 168 and 169 talks about right of finder of goods. So section 168 says right of finder of goods may sue for specific rewards offered. The finder of good has no right to sue the owner for compensation for trouble and expense voluntarily incurred by him to preserve the goods and to find out the owner. But he may retain the goods against the owner until he receives such compensation, and where the owner has offered a specific reward for return of goods lost, the finder may sue for such reward and may return the goods until he receives it. So 168 is saying कि अगर finder of good has taken any trouble and उसको कोई expense हुआ है which he has voluntarily incurred in finding and preserving the good, उसके लिए he cannot sue the owner for compensation, but he has the right to retain the goods जब तक उसको वो compensation ना मिले. और अगर कोई specific reward announce हुआ था then he can sue the owner for that specific reward and he can retain the good until he receives that reward. So under 168 there is the right of lien to the goods for finder of goods. Then 169 says when finder of things commonly on sale may sell it. So when a thing which is commonly the subject of sale is lost, if the owner cannot with reasonable diligence be found, or if he refuses upon demand to pay the lawful charges of the finder, then the finder may sell the good firstly when the thing is in danger of perishing or losing the greater part of its value. So अगर goods is of such a nature कि वो खराब हो जाएगा or it will lose greater part of its value, then the finder can sell the goods. Secondly, when the lawful charge of the finder in respect of the thing found amount to 2/3 of its value. So if it amounts to 2/3 of the value of the good, उस केस में भी he can sell the goods and recover अपना amount. After this, section 170 talks about Bailee's particular lien. So where the Bailee has, in accordance with the purpose of the bailment, rendered any service involving the exercise of labour or skill in respect of the goods bailed, he has, in the absence of a contract to the contrary, a right to retain such goods until he receives due remuneration for the services he has rendered in respect of them. So 170 talks about the lien of Bailee. अगर उसने कुछ भी service render किया which involves the exercise of labor or skill, then until and unless the Bailor remunerates him, he has the right to retain the good. Let's look at the example. A delivers a rough diamond to B, a jeweler, to be cut and polished, which is accordingly done. B is entitled to retain the stone till he is paid for the services he has rendered. Alright, after this 171 talks about general lien of bankers, factors, wharfingers, attorneys and policy brokers. So bankers, factors, wharfingers, attorney of a high court and policy brokers may, in the absence of a contract to the contrary, retain as a security for a general balance of the account any goods bailed to them, but no other person have a right to retain as a security for such balance goods bailed to them unless there is an express contract to that effect. 171 simply बताता है कि general lien कौन कौन exercise कर सकते हैं for the purpose of security of balance. With this we have come to an end of the video. Thank you and I hope आपको ये video helpful लगा. If you found it helpful then please like, share and subscribe to Lawstorming channel. और अगर आपको कोई भी सजेशन देना है then please comment your suggestions. मिलते हैं अगले वीडियो में. बाय बाय.